Redditors who got a useless degree. How did it turn out? Story 1. Well, I personally figured getting a chemistry degree would be an easy way to avoid having a useless degree, but then I found out all entry-level lab work is open to high school GEDs and pays less than fast food where I live. That said, hazardous waste is good work if anyone is feeling it. Comes with its own retirement in the form of chronic poisoning, but you get life insurance as well, so someone you know will be happy when you pass. Story 2. History degree here. I took a full-time job unrelated to my studies because it was June 2020, so I figured I should have something at hand. Ended up loving the job, so I didn't continue down the path to my master's or credentials for teaching. Glad I didn't as well from talking to my peers. Now I work in public transit, and it's honestly much more fulfilling than I ever would have thought. Story 3. English degree. I do data entry and paperwork at a medical clinic. Computer literacy in general and professional writing typing skills do help a lot. Story 4. I got my BA in French and an MA in French linguistics. I loved every minute of it, but never found my planned career in teaching French. I ended up teaching computer science courses for a while, and then became an instructional designer. I just retired last month and I don't regret any of it. Story 5. Political science degree. Ended up deciding not to go to law school. I work in insurance, but because I developed a skill in writing, I'm able to do a lot of my work via email with client services, and get paid pretty decent, and I have a work-from-home job. Education is never useless, and always helps even if it's not the path you originally thought it would be. Story 6. I got a degree in anthropology, my father having paid for this degree, then told me I needed something with a certificate, so, off to nursing school I went. It was the perfect profession for me. Story 7. Theater degree here, then got an MFA in writing, basically burned out on both things though I do still write, ended up as a district merchandising manager after working my way through grad school as a retail manager merchandiser. Story 8. Not my story. I met a man who said he had a useless degree. I asked him what it was. He said Victorian studies, but then steampunk became popular. He is doing really well as a maker now. This is his shop, Brute Force Studios. He was also a judge on a show on steampunk crafts, and wrote a book. Story 9. My wife has a bachelor's degree in gender studies and is now a physician with 3 doctorates, and she's doing her master's at Harvard. She's collecting letters like infinity stones. Edit so I don't have to keep answering. She's a practicing physician. She makes good money and saves lives and publishes papers. I'm sorry people are feeling insecure. I never understood why she had trouble dating because she'd always say dudes would get weird about her work scholarwords. I'm so glad you guys lower the bar so much that all I had to do to land a hot genius was be like, I think it's so cool that you're so amazing. I'm proud to know you. Story 10. I got a degree in East Asian Studies because my advisor said it doesn't matter, just major in something you like, there will be jobs. Worked retail for 10 years, am now at my uncle's real estate company. Nepotism to the rescue. Story 11. Geography. It's not useless at all, but many people believe it to be. Every company and government uses GIS, Geographic Information Systems, on some capacity, but I digress. Everyone I know from school is gainfully unemployed, but there are very few set paths, the exceptions being environmental consulting and GIS analysts. That means the 50 people in my undergrad program probably have 40 different job titles or even types of jobs. Geographers are also social scientists or physical scientists with a social science lens, so really good at critical thinking and looking at issues from many angles. I've been working many non-academic jobs at a university and it's super fulfilling. Pay would be better in private sector, but I'm happy. Work-life balance is great, and I love all the different people that work in universities. Story 12. Film degree. You can find my name in the set lighting or grip section at the end of Marvel movies, Top Gun Maverick, and this summer's F1 amongst network TV shows and a bunch of small indies you've never heard of. Story 13. English and political science double major. Worked in federal government for about a decade, then transitioned into consulting. I used to think my degree was useless, but it's become clearer to me lately that writing, editing, public speaking, and critical thinking were skills I developed in college and subsequently took for granted. A lot of people come out of college and graduate school without having those skills, and if anything, it seems to be getting worse. ChatGPT has leveled the playing field somewhat, but a lot of people are using it as a crutch, and it shows. Story 14. I have a son with a bachelor's and master's degrees in music, but didn't pursue music as a career. He works as a manager and trainer at an upscale gym in a large city and makes about 6 figures a year. I'm still proud of him despite his not pursuing his degree career. As long as he is happy, that's what matters most. Story 15. Theater degree. Partner at an ad agency. I use my degree multiple times every single day, and my 20s were guaranteed more fun than most of the suits who make just as much as I do now. It's risky, but I say do what you love and know when to pivot. Story 16. Studied computer games programming. A degree I switched from computer science in my first semester. Got a job as a programmer for a studio that made gambling games, and then 6 years later got a job at an indie games publisher. Got laid off from them 18 months ago, but work as a games programmer for a big games company now. Not so useless as my dad feared it'd be. Story 17. English and creative writing. Was so deeply agoraphobic and socially anxious that I could barely function before my degree. Studying something I was genuinely passionate about made the push towards independence actually achievable. If I'd studied finance like I'd planned, I definitely wouldn't have made it to the end of my time at university in one piece. The fact I'm nearly 30 with a wide group of friends and a comfortable medical administrator job is entirely because I used my time at university to grow into adulthood securely. College can be valuable in various ways. Just sucks that it's so expensive that going for pastoral reasons isn't easy realistic for so many people. Story 18 Criminal Justice Degree. Yes, I became a cop. No, I didn't need this degree to be a cop, but I am compensated more because of it, so it worked out well for me. Story 19 Degree Recreation and Leisure with an emphasis of event planning job work at a Disney resort in a recreation role going back to school for elementary education. Story 20 English Degree. Had no idea what type of work I would end up in, but had a completely unjustified amount of faith that things would work out because I had wanted to major in English since I was 6 years old and reading Ramona Quimby books. I applied for everything under the sun after college and ended up working as an admin assistant for a tech company that led to doing technical writing, which led to various roles across various tech companies. It turned out just fine. Story 21 I went to art school. I am now the innovation product manager that tells the STEM majors what to make. I did get a top 20 MBA which put my resume in the right pile, but I work at a company that makes art and design tools. It's very obvious to everyone what made me the right pick. I needed both degrees combined to get here. Story 22 Art Degree. I am an elementary school teacher, not art teacher. I do so many school-wide art projects with students. I love making art. I would like to say I do my own art outside of work, but I'm too tired. My whole life is an art project and installation performance piece. It's exhausting. Story 23 Philosophy Degree. I joined an anarchist collective that put me in contact with the chair of the economics department in my university. We hit it off and he told me I should apply to the program. So I did. I was consistently one of the best students and got a research assistant position. Now I make 6 figures in the energy sector. A lot of people say that that's to be expected with an econ master's. But what they fail to see is that I wouldn't have that master's if it weren't for my philosophy degree and the choices I took with it. Story 24 I have a history degree with a minor in law and politics and now I'm a business analyst at a medium-sized insurance company. I would like to be at a museum or an archives, but insurance is stable and it pays the bills and I get a matching 401k, bonus and corporate expense account, so I guess I don't have that many regrets. I've thought about maybe running for office though or serving in government at some point. Story 25 Bachelor's in Theology. During COVID, I got a job in a government call center, became a team lead within a year, then pivoted into HR. Turns out a degree that's supposed to set you up to lead people spiritually is also really useful in a corporate setting and you also don't feel like your soul's being crushed while doing it. Story 26 English Degree. I work as a bank teller and absolutely adore it. It has everything I loved about retail people, cash registers, and none of the bullshit coworker drama, scheduling basically being on call, cleaning up spilled food or broken glass etc. I also get paid enough that I can live comfortably and have good benefits. Story 27 Majored in anthropology with minors in history and geography. My mom said I had the most useless degree ever. I used it to get into law school though and I've had my own firm for almost 10 years, so I think it turned out pretty well. Story 28 Art Degree. Had a career in illustration, drawing comic books, and moved that over to graphic design, which turned into weird permutations of web design, which led to product user experience, which is where I'm at now. The same layout skills I learned in illustration make sense in layout out a web page, a form or a dashboard. It all ties together. Message to mom useless degree my. Story 29 Got a degree in music performance and work for an awesome startup, 1010. Would recommend. Great employers do not really care what kind of a degree you have, as long as you are hardworking and solve problems. Story 30 I was told my degree in education was useless unless I was a teacher. I left after 2 years and tutored remotely for another 2 years. I decided to leave education entirely and felt awful for not using my degree. I now work in insurance and use a lot of my education skills to better teach customers about insurance and their policies and help save them a lot of money. It feels good still using the skills I learned in college while helping another demographic in another way. It's not how I thought I'd use my degree, but I'll take it. Something funny about insurance is that most of us have unrelated degrees. So many of us took the job as a placeholder until we found something better, but there really isn't better. Story 31 Originally was going to school for graphic design, AI and everything in it scared me, plus I was just about over going to school, so I just swapped my degree over to an interdisciplinary studies degree. A year later I'm a safety manager making double what I was. Great thing about interdisciplinary degree is it can be whatever you want it to be to the employer, cause no one knows what the it is. Story 32 Useless degrees are actually quite vital for the preservation of a democratic society. Take history, for example. What if historical knowledge was more widespread? What if people had known beforehand that Trump and his antics weren't new, and that democracies have always been plagued, right back to the Greeks, by populist demagogue buffoons like Trump? That would have been pretty useful now, wouldn't it? Story 33 BS Accounting. Spent a decade in it before I realized that I have a personality. Moved on to mutual fund investment sales. Personality died eventually. Story 34 Music degree. I'm in the industry and make a good enough living, but I definitely didn't need to pay for 5 years of college to develop the skills that got me to this point. Story 35 Bachelors of Mathematics, Bachelors of System Science and Mathematics, and a Masters of Control Engineering. My problem was timing. got absolutely screwed by .com bubble for my first degree, so went back for the next two only to hit the 2008 clusterfuck. I was sitting in waiting rooms for interviews for jobs with people with more degrees and 10 years experience for the same entry-level jobs. Never got into my field, ended up creating online tutorials for college textbooks MyMathLab for a decade, only slightly bitter about it. Story 36 degree in commercial art graphic design. Got it right before advertising changed from teams of layout artists hand drawing lettering and artwork to a couple of guys on a computer doing clip art designs. I minored in math, so backed into a job as a chemical lab technician because they needed someone who could calculate. In 15 years I went from lab tech in a wet label, to a research lab and into a research chemist position. In the subsequent 18 years I've moved from chemistry to supply chain management to distribution center specialist. The best advice: never stop training. If there is any training your company offers and/or will pay for, do it. If nothing else, it pads out the resume. Story 37 B.S. in psychology, minor in neuro. In practice, I did a neuropsychology track, but I didn't have the bio courses taken for the neuroscience degree. Yes, I had the neuro classes, -1 capstone. Yes, I had one of the 2 neuro capstones as well. I ultimately went on to law school. I actually feel that's really been useful, but only because I went on to law school. That said, I needed the neuro courses as well, because it's helped me notice things in cases. Not that I can be like, this guy has damage to his hippocampus, and can't remember anything, therefore his testimony is inadmissible. I can however be like, yeah, something's funky here, can we get a second opinion? More often than I see my colleagues, they do also ask me a lot of questions about medical evidence, which leads me to assume my degree gave me a fair degree of knowledge that's useful outside its field. Story 38 graduated with aerospace engineering and English literature degrees. Thought the latter was gratuitous. After 15 years of technical work investigating why aircraft engines failed, moved into a non-technical management position that required understanding why the human part of the organization was failing. Story 39 My bachelor's was in economics. Took zero sciences as an undergraduate, later completed a post-botch pre-med program and am currently a physician about 12 years into independent practice. Story 40 Film studies degree. Never got a job in the industry, bounced around various customer service jobs, am now studying to be a radiographer. Please send good vibes that I graduate. Story 41 I have an associate's degree in business administration. I literally have never seen any job posting list an associate's as a requirement or preference. Every job that I've seen that required a degree required at least a bachelor's. Low-skilled or manual labor jobs typically require no degree at all. An associate's is really only of practical value as stepping stone in education, not on its own. I have a director-level job at a 9-figure company. I got very lucky with my first job and then just kept climbing using my experience as leverage. Story 42 Music performance. I now book musicians, DJs and various entertainment for weddings corporate events in Toronto. The company I work for does about 1,500 events annually. Love my job, and I still get to play music with some of the most incredible musicians I've ever met. Story 43 The degree is useless itself, but it allows me to check a box and apply to better paying jobs. Sociology criminology minor degree got me into fraud and then eventually into AML compliance work for a major bank. Been with the company 8 years or so, doing pretty well for myself. Sucked to pay off private student loans with insane interest, but I'd say it was well worth it in the end. Story 44 Communications degree. Showered full frontal in an award-winning play. Gun pointed at me by Chris Hemsworth. Boxed Hugh Jackman. Helped The Rock sell Fords. Went to prison with Sylvester Stallone. Fun times. Story 45 Culinary arts degree. Cooked as a chef for a hot min but decided to be a fishing guide. Now I manage a fishing lodge in SEAK and I hire people to cook for me. Story 46 BA in sociology. It was interesting and I learned a lot. Nothing that would get me a job, but it rounded me out as a person. I'm mortgage-free at 58 and can retire at 60. Not rich by any measure, but I did okay. I ended up working in arts and culture. I know it's a luxury, but it wasn't about the appropriation of skills for the workforce or a career. Out of high school, how do you know what you want to be doing in 20 years? I salute those who know, but for a lot of us an undergrad degree is a worthwhile means to figuring out what might come next. Story 47 Bachelor of Arts with honors. My thesis was on James Joyce, Irish history, semiotics and humor. Finished in 1996. I have worked in call centers and factories since then. Story 48 BA in astrophysics. Went to a liberal arts school and we all got BAs. Then a master's and PhD in history of science. While I never used either degree directly, they allowed for some fun permutations on my early career path. I taught physics, chemistry, and English in Tanzania with the Peace Corps. Then I worked in science outreach, presenting assemblies and teaching classes all over the state. After grad school, the recession hit hard, so I randomly pivoted into entertainment journalism. Neither degree was applicable, but I'm pretty sure the weird degrees got me interviews. Did that for 5 years, writing about TV shows and hanging out at Hollywood parties. Then I decided I wanted a real paycheck in a stable industry. Took a brief stab at marketing before going to law school in my early 40s. Now I make money, it's nice. Story 49 Anthropology degree pre-med focus. I got into medical school, got my top choice of residency. I've been in practice 20 years, trained dozens of med students and residents. I've been hospital VP and medical director for a large multi-center health clinic. currently in a well-paid job that I'm coasting towards retirement. I'm still under 50 for a few more months and should hit my number in the next 5 years. Let your passions open doors for you, just be willing to walk through those doors. Story 50 Biology and Psychology with a focus on animal behavior. Went on to train service dogs at a non-profit for 6 years. I went back to school for an accelerated nursing program and graduate in May. I have a job lined up as an ICU nurse. Story 51 Music degrees, all the way to DMA doctorate. Teach college band, mostly a good gig. Had to work on Sunday to do a parade I hated but spent today playing Civ 7 to make up for it. Great flexibility in schedule, good pay for the amount of time I actually work, though the regular 60-hour weeks are a drag on the weeks I do actually work, and I get to make music with some really great young folks. Every semester I get to pick music I've always wanted to dig into more and get more in love with, and it never disappoints. That being said, the developed alcoholism to try to sleep given I work some nights until 10 p.m. and have to be up at 6 for family things really sucks. Story 52 Hey OP. I got a very low mark in my degree to the point of it not being useful for the aligned industry, but I never had any interest in that industry anyway, truth be told. My degree, regardless of grade, has been endlessly useful through my career, some practical, some social. I can tick the box for degree on job applications. I have the training and knowledge of how to arrive at answers that may not seem obvious. I have the social advantage of being able to refer to my reasonably prestigious university if it comes up in conversation. I learned, the hard way, that there are levels of intelligence in people, and what their identifiers are. To be clear, I don't class myself as intelligent, but I met people who were. I understand the difference. I have lifelong friends who have professional careers that I could if necessary ask them to describe and mentor my kids on. The list goes on. Story 53 got an MFA in creative writing, make about $65K per year in education, with summers off to explore other kinds of work or just rest. Not too bad with my partner's income included. Story 54 Theater degree. I got technical training through the military reserves and have worked in that field for decades. Several jobs have required at least a bachelor's just to get hired, but it didn't matter that it was theater because I had training specific to the job, almost like a separate minimum education requirement. Story 55 BS in psychology. I have a useless piece of paper as you need at least a master's if you want to do anything with this degree, and I have no desire to be a counselor or what have you. At least my degree was free. I work for a balloon company that does balloon decor and twisting. It's a fun job and I love it, but am definitely overqualified for the job, lol. Story 56 BA in political science here. I've worked in local government for nearly 15 years and use my degree every day. Take that, extended family who didn't have college degrees themselves but told me how useless mine would be. Story 57 got a European history degree, had a pretty decent career working in event services, sporting events, concerts, convention type stuff. Got pretty depressed thanks to being bipolar and almost killed myself a few times, spent some time in the hospital and got ECT, which made me lose a ton of memories including a lot of what I learned in college. Anyway, after deciding that event services was never gonna pay super great, I decided I wanted to be a welder. Welding pays unless you can weld pipe or something highly specialized, which, had I done any research I probably could have figured that out. Found a school that sounded like a scam. It was $500 a semester plus books. They would find me a job and I would basically get paid to learn welding. Turns out I am a shitty welder, but the school also taught you plumbing and pipe fitting. Turns out it was a scam, but a United Association affiliated school, the Union for Plumbing, Pipe Fitting, Welding and VACR. Somehow I managed to join the UA without any experience or knowing anyone. 5 years later I became a journeyman and have made more money in the first 3 months of this year than I made in 12 doing event services. So after all that I got a history degree, meandered a little bit and became a plumber pipe fitter. I even transferred some of my credits, and the school I thought was a scam was actually accredited TheoUG, the local CC, and I was able to get an AAS. It's been a long strange road for sure, but my useless degree set me up for an interesting life. Story 58 Art major. I started driving box trucks for a few companies out of college for 3 years. Then one of my wife's friend's husband asked me to come help his company install windows. After a year and a half quit because it was terribly managed. Started building houses with a crew my brother worked for. After 2 years decided the only part one actually enjoyed was painting. So I asked to just paint for the company, went off on my own after a year, joined a paint company and make around 35 hours. I love to draw and paint, I just struggle to find time and commit to sitting down for other reasons, but I still art. Story 59 degree in studio art. For the past 30 years I've worked as an artist for monument companies. I engrave designs into the granite, portraits, etc. It's very intricate work and I love it. I make my own hours. I've recently started to design the monuments as well. Story 60 English degree. I got into McSweeney's ID once and I used to see my copywriting on billboards. But nowadays I just have an extremely cushy editing job where everyone treats me like some sort of hipster Ron Swanson. Story 61 Fine Arts degree specializing in oil painting. My businesses are involved in carbon fiber repair, high-end bicycles and race cars, and custom painting high-end bicycles. My degree does help in the design aspects of some custom paint jobs, but I really took a lot of the get-it-done mentality I learned in school to help me build my businesses and learn the skills I use every day. I knew nothing about carbon fiber repair for a decade after graduating. My first career was in professional gymnastics coaching. Story 62 Anthropology degree. I've gotten every job I've applied for since graduating, all in people-centered fields, research or in direct support positions. I learned excellent skills in my degree and I use them daily. Story 63 Trumpet Performance Degree from Juilliard. Now I'm a criminal defense attorney. Spending a lot of time prepping for one high-pressure moment on stage or in court was an essential translatable skill. Also, knowing that most work comes from peer referrals, the people who succeed are more sociable than talented or skilled. I feel my work is more meaningful, but compared to musicians, lawyers are miserable. Everyone I used to work with was pretty happy. Now my coworkers etc. are all cranky all the time. I have a real salary and health insurance, but not convinced it's worth the vibe. 310 recommend. Story 64 I got a scholarship from a church to go to a Christian college to become a youth pastor. Now I'm pagan and I work in mechanical engineering, so it took a pretty hard turn LMAO. Story 65 Philosophy degree. Now a bartender for 18 years or so. Really thought I wanted to spend my life in academia, but realized quickly that hanging out with undergrads for the rest of my life was not for me. Wouldn't trade the friends and family I've made along the way for anything. Constantly meet interesting people, hang out with comedians and musicians, and have a schedule that allows me to pursue all of my hobbies to any degree I wish. Helps that I work in neighborhood bars that tend towards older 30s and up customers and creatives, and also that I've worked in the same bars for 15 years. Story 66 I can tell you a friend of mine has a BA in humanities, graduated with honors. She's a receptionist at an eye doctor's office making $17 an hour to pay off $63,000 of student debt. I asked her why she chose the degree knowing the ROI was so low. Her response to me was it was my dream. I hope her dream was worth it. Story 67 I got an undergrad in psychology, and most of it had me thinking this was just a waste of my time because all the high-paying jobs needed a master's or doctorate. I'm in my mid-20s now and work on a street team as a crisis worker for a pretty large city. Pay is pretty good for the area too. I'm quite content with this for the time being. I see no need to continue my education until I want to further my options, but working a part of street crisis services is extremely rewarding. Story 68 Sociology. I wrote my thesis on the ontology of safe spaces in feminist literature. I got my master's in social work and now work at a children's hospital. Story 69 Bachelor's in Japanese and Anthropology. It's worked out well actually. I lived and worked in Japan for years. Now that I'm back in my home country, I work for a Japanese auto manufacturer, started doing simultaneous interpretation, and have since transitioned to a training data analytics role. I think that if you are driven and competent, you can definitely make useless degrees work for you. Story 70 Bachelor's in Sociology. Struggled for a while. Got into sales as we often do, did well, moved around, got into sales for big corporation you have definitely heard of, eventually moved into operations during a restructure, restructured again, and now I work in ops for big corporation you have probably not heard of. The job is a great fit, and life is awesome. Even the tough, lowly paid experience early on was pretty great in a lot of ways. Story 71 Sociology degree. Got a master degree in teaching and did that for a while, now studying educational psychology while working in student affairs at a university. Story 72 Communications major. I job hopped from one dead-end job to another. Much of it is my fault since I didn't focus on specific part of my degree and didn't build my portfolio in college, which is an important part of my degree. I've applied to hundreds of jobs after graduating, had my resume professionally rewritten multiple times, networked etc. Maybe I'm just bad at life lol. Story 73 Studio recording degree, Bachelor of Music Technology technically, not working in the field, but it gave me a foot in the door to a corporate side of the industry. More importantly, it gave me the skills to record and release my own music to a professional level, which is one of the more rewarding things I do with my life. Story 74 Not me, but I had two friends who majored in gender studies, which many people today would have a mental breakdown over. One of them works for an organization that works to stop human trafficking, the other works for the Trevor Project. Both enjoy their jobs very much. Story 75 BFA with a concentration in painting. I built my own curriculum including film, programming and advanced math courses while I built an animation portfolio. I have made educational animations, video games, and VR apps. Story 76 Speaking on behalf of my Redditless sister, who is pursuing a BA in creative writing. She has just recently gotten evicted again after not paying rent for 6 months because she cannot find a relevant job. Story 77 Marine Science degree. In 22 years I have never used it. I wanted to be a marine biologist since I was 4 years old. I went into molecular biology instead and it was so boring I ended up becoming a waitress. At least that is interesting. Story 78 It depends on your definition of useless. I got a pharmacy degree and am now working in tech, in experience design for fashion e-commerce. I make more money now than I did in pharmacy. Is my degree useless for now? Yes, but I also wouldn't have been able to get to where I am now because of it, so not useless but not as useful right now. Story 79 Got a dual degree in history and humanities classical civilizations. Ended up working in credit unions for years before I went to law school. 10 years out from law school I'm a relatively high-level federal employee until the current admin tosses me out on my I suppose. I make good money and am married to someone in the private sector making more than I do with a much higher ceiling than I'll ever have in public service. Can't complain. Story 80 English Language and Literature Bachelor's degree. I worked in advertising for 15 years. Now I have a good job in marketing for a multinational and earn pretty good money. The friends I have from university who did the same course are mostly lawyers, journalists, academics, or also work in some sort of marketing. I can still quote a lot of poetry from memory, but I don't get the chance much anymore. Story 81. Just FYI, getting a college degree is known as a signaling device. Going through a 4-year program where you write papers and pass tests and presumably are responsible enough for the standards of a college or university is valuable, regardless of what your degree actually is. Obviously, the degree matters and your major will have an impact on your career, but there really isn't such a thing as a useless degree. Even if you get it in Polynesian basket weaving, having that diploma will increase your lifetime earnings potential far, far outside of whatever you paid for it. Story 82. Pretty good actually. Liberal arts taught me a lot of useful soft skills, a lot about myself, and it gave me new filters to look at the world. I think Mark Cuban is being proven right that liberal arts degrees are very much worth it if you take some initiative and apply them. Entitlement, not the degree, is the issue. Story 83. It's funny how many people didn't go to school for computer science and now work in it, but if you go to school now for computer science, there will be no job for you. Story 84. Political science. Not only did I get no job prospects, but I also got some sort of existential depression after I learned about democracy and capitalism. Story 85. Many people consider my degree useless, but I don't see it that way. I majored in sociology specifically to work in the non-profit sector, and I've never had trouble finding a job in that field. Story 86. I soon realized my anthropology degree didn't prepare me to do much of anything after graduation. Luckily, I had worked at the college radio station and got a job as radio DJ for the next 6 years. It was a ton of fun. Story 87. Psych degree. It was wasted on me as a 20-year-old. Drove trucks, taxis, deli hand, admin work. 10 years later got drafted into corporate training, probably because of the degree. I needed it. Soon running courses in stress management, communication skills, negotiation skills, team building, customer service, intro to PCs. It was the early 90s. The degree proved very useful, but I needed life experience too. Story 88. BA in Psych, which people fell all over themselves to tell me was useless. I loved my studies. Hiring managers must love it too. I've gotten an offer at every job I've ever interviewed for. Now I write and manage research grants and make great money. Or at least I will until the current US administration finishes killing my career. Story 89. BS in Child Psychology. Master is Public Administration. Can confidently write policy memos to tell sales bros I work with why they are disabled toddlers. Story 90. I'm doubly qualified to answer this question as I have 2 useless degrees, BA in English Literature and BM in Classical Guitar Performance. I'm a building inspector for the city making 6 figures and have discovered that I'm actually more analytical than creative. I'm now pursuing a third, but hopefully useful, degree, Civil Engineering. Story 91. Art degree, poli-sci minor, then law school. I now manage a luxury apartment complex and paint on the side. Turns out the law degree was the most useless part. Story 92. I'm not sure how much I'd describe a degree as useless. Every degree can be useful, right? I guess it matters what percentage of people actually end up using that degree. I don't know what percentage would take it from useless to useful though. With that said, the people I know with useless degrees off the top of my head: history, works in a lawyer's office, files paperwork, history manager at an engineering company, kind of a one-man show in his department, hospitality housewife, Spanish, works in IT on government contracts but can't keep a job to save his life, English, doesn't work. Blames medical issues, but it's all BS. Philosophy. Last I heard she worked at her dad's school for troubled handicapped kids or something like that. I think that school closed though. Now she just posts about church stuff all the time. Her husband has an engineering degree and almost immediately became a house husband when he graduated. They got married while in college. Art. She married a soldier, so it was probably difficult to find a lasting career. She was working in a frame shop in Alabama, but her boss wouldn't let a woman use any of the tools. I'm not sure what she's doing now. My dad got a business degree because he thought it would help him manage people in the army. He said it was a waste of time. I have a friend with an architecture degree that couldn't find a job when they graduated in 2008. They worked for the government, processing soldiers as they returned to the US. They got the job from a family member. I have another friend with an architectural degree that was in the same boat. Luckily, they were already in the National Guard, so they took a full-time position as a deputy base architect. Not exactly what they went to school for, but it's architecture adjacent.